What? What? What's up, everybody? I'm starting early tonight. I was going to start at 8 o'clock, but stomach bug has been getting me down for the past couple of days, and I'm really tired. So I thought I would try to start this one a little bit early and maybe try to end around 8:30, and hopefully there'll be enough time to answer some questions you may have, or just some generic talking that we can do together. Which, by the way, when I say talking, not gonna lie, it's still I've been doing this for 3 years now, I think, and it's still super, super weird to talk to a camera and not hear a voice back. I don't know if I'll ever get used to that, but yeah, it's super weird. So, start off with saying hey to everybody. What's up, Simon? Simon says he's going to be so asleep when this begins. Yeah, was he? I think Simon, you're in the UK. Is that correct? I may be thinking that is the case. Simon says, I'd like to ask Aaron, think you could do an interview with Andrew Jones about concentric driver designs? That would be up to Andrew. I think at one point we had talked about me having him on as a guest at some point to just talk about different stuff. I did actually message him today to ask him a question about the MoFi Source Point 8. And because I was just curious, as a designer, I had a question and I said, this is off the record, so I can't really talk about what the question was, but he answered me and we kind of chatted about a couple little things. And maybe one day he'll come on. That would be cool. And I would really like to have him. I would like to do more of those. I mean, they're not really an interview, so I just do the air quotes for the interview, but have people come on and talk about, their perspectives in the audio industry. Medevil 1980. Aaron, if you could pick any one bookshelf speaker to use for an entire 7.1 setup, what would it be? I'm thinking about downsizing and sticking with the same speaker for all ear level positions. Well, give me a price, because I can tell you that the first two that just pop into my mind without thinking is the KEF Reference 1 Meta and then the Dutch and Dutch 8C. Those are large bookshelf speakers, though. So I don't know if you're talking about those. They're called bookshelf speaker, but they're pretty large bookshelf speaker. If you're talking about something lower priced, then like the ELAC DVR62 to me is always a really good go-to. Now, some people may not like it for one reason or another, but I feel like it's kind of a safe recommendation. I think they're $7 or $7.50 a pair, somewhere around there. The Ascend Acoustics Sierra 1 V2 that I just tested, they're just under $1,000 per pair. That's a great speaker. If you went with all those all around, that would be pretty awesome. I do like the JBL HDI 1600s. Those are pretty cool. Don't recall how much they are. The Revel, the M16? I think it's the M16. That's another one that's more budget friendly. I think they're around $700 or $800 a pair. So it kind of just depends on what your budget would be. But yeah, if we're talking kind of like an end game setup, bookshelf speakers all around for a 7.1, Dutch and Dutch 8C or KEF Reference 1 Meta, they're getting my choice out the gate, but they're not cheap at all, relatively speaking. It's exciting. KEF perhaps, yeah. KEF perhaps. Yeah, so something like the Q300 or the Q150 is an option. The LS50 Meta is an option. The KEF R3 Meta is an option. It's really hard to go wrong with KEF products because they're tiered and you progressively get better. But they all, I'm not going to say they had the same sound because they don't, but they all are engineered well, and it's really hard to go wrong in whatever price category. So if you're looking at a pair of KEFs for $500 and compare them to something else for $500, I'm not saying for sure the KEF is going to be better, but for sure the KEF is going to be worthwhile consideration. How's that? What's up, Gerald? My question for Aaron: if you had the power to change anything in this world, what would it be? Man, that's a good question, and one that I would not answer without some considerable consideration. I mean, I could say like world peace and stuff like that, but I don't know, man. Then you have to start thinking about what happens if and what if statements. So I don't know. I really don't know. Oh, okay. Smallish mid-sized living room setup, by the way. Yeah, so you mentioned the Kef. I like the Emotiva B1 Plus. I always recommend that, but they don't have those anymore. They're supposed to be releasing a new Emotiva set of products. I think I was told in the new year. And I did ask the manufacturer if they would be willing to send me some stuff when those new designs come out, and they said yeah. So I plan to touch base with them again. There's so many different speakers that I've listened to in the past few years that it's hard for me to recall all of them unless it's for some reason really stood out. Some of them stand out for bad reasons. Some of them stand out for good reasons. So let's see here. Polk R700, L400, R100s now. Well, then stick with Polk if you like Polk. Maybe the R200s. BB Photo, what's up, Billy? That's heavy, Gerald. How you doing? Cold in Cape Cod. Oh, yes, Gerald. I have not seen your video yet, but I do plan to watch it. Let's see here. Fox Gaming 76. Hey, Aaron, I'm here for once. What's up, man? I'm glad you were able to make it. Stack Overflow. I like the screen name. I've been to that website so many times when I was trying to learn how to code. Hi, man. How are you? What's your experience with Till speakers? I don't have any. I have experience with some of their drive units from my DIY car audio days where a friend of mine got some in and then I ordered some from somewhere and played around like off eBay. Played around with them. But I don't really have any experience with their home audio stuff, so I really can't say. What's up, Billy? Yeah, weird talking to a camera by yourself. For sure, for sure. David Arnold. David, everybody take a second and say congratulations, golf claps to David. He won the JBL 550p that I was sent to review, not by the manufacturer, but by somebody else, and they told me I could keep it. So I gave it away on Patreon along with the Monolith 8-inch THX that Monolith told me that I could keep, or I'm sorry, that Monoprice told me that I could keep. And I made an announcement, said it, Monoprice told me I could keep it. So nothing funky going on there. But I gave them away. David just had to pay shipping, which was $80. So he got a really good subwoofer for $80. So congratulations, David. And I will be shipping that soon. I hope you enjoy it, man. Hello from Miami. Hello from Alabama. Let's see here. Hey, Aaron, about the Monolith coaxes, are you ever going to have them up on the Spinorama? Thanks for the reminder. Actually, Pierre just emailed me back. I sent him over some measurements this morning, and he emailed me and said, by the way, I'm still missing, I think it's like 4 or 5. And I said, I'll try to remember to get those to you. But most of the time, I just forget. I just forget. I think I got to send him those in the Triangle Borea 03. Yeah, I was thinking maybe KFLS 50 metas or R3 metas. Any of those I would think are going to be okay to go with. If you need to save the space, I think the LS50 metas are going to be smaller. The R3 metas won't be, but the R3 meta, just from a design perspective, probably has better dynamic capability. Just because it's got a dedicated mid bass, and the transition out of the tweeter into the waveguide, the mid range is the waveguide, and then to the edge of that waveguide, which is the surround of that mid woofer. That surround on the LS50 is a little bit beefier, so it isn't as smooth a transition in terms of waveguide transitions as the dedicated mid-range version of a KEF driver, like the R3 Meta. Have I tested any of the DIY designs like the statements? I haven't tested the statements. By the way, what's up, Brian? But I have tested Overnight Sensations and the Samba ones. And I actually caught some flack from one of the Facebook groups because they literally were accusing me of, and I don't use that term lightly. I literally was accused of basically falsifying data for clicks or something. I'm like, really? Okay. We managed to settle that, and it turns out that sometimes DIY designs aren't as good as the designer thinks that they are, and that's not a shot at all at anybody. It's they are basing their design on a measurement method that is not, frankly, it's just not good enough. And um yeah, I guess that's just kind of the best way to say it. The measurement method wasn't good enough to really design the speaker and get it nailed down. But I did take the raw driver measurements of both of those speakers and put them in a zip file. Raw, when I say raw driver, I kept the drivers on the baffle, disconnected any crossover, measured each driver individually, and then posted the zip file for people to download so they could load all the measurements, the 0 to 180 vertical and horizontal for both drivers in the enclosure. And they could use that then on VCAD and then mess around with the crossovers and things like that if they wanted to. I don't know how many people have done that. I know some people kind of simulated different crossover designs, but I don't know if anybody actually did anything with it or not. Then I've tested the DIY sound group designs. Which one was it? The HTM. I think it was the V1. I know I tested the V2, or maybe I tested a couple of the DIY sound group designs. It was the HTM, and I think it was a V1 and V2. Let's see here. Oh, I tested the DIY sound group. What is it? The Elusive 1099? Is that what it is? Ryan Boma had designed that one, and actually, I had Ryan on the channel to talk about his design and how he came up with it, his measurement process. Because Ryan, I think it's Impulse Audio is his YouTube channel, which I don't think he's updated it in a long time. But that channel's great. Impulse Audio. If any of you are interested in it, go check that out. Oh yeah, and you do believe a new crossover in the monolith coaxes would improve the dip at 1.7 kilohertz? I'm sure, because it looks like it's baked into the design. Some people were saying that it might be baked into the design for THX purposes. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was some people's thinking, I guess. But yeah, you could certainly improve it, but I don't know that you need to. I mean, it's if I recall that dip at the crossover is pretty narrow. And so I don't know that it's a big deal, but if you want to take the time and smooth it out, I'm sure you can. And the sound power on that driver, as well as the early reflections directivity, are both really good. So you could just equalize that if you wanted to. Gain Stage, really enjoy your reviews. I run a set of Genelec studio monitors, but love keeping up with the industry. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. One of these days, I hope to get some more Genelec stuff in. I'd really love to get there. Is it the 8381, the big boy that they just came out with? I actually talked about that. I never did a review. Yeah, the 8381. That thing's ridiculous. For those of you who don't know, I'll just go ahead and pull it up real fast and show you this this big behemoth of a speaker. Go away. All right. Specs. Yeah, that's a 15, I think. And then there's dual 15 bass modules down here. I mean, it's just insane. Insane. So one day I would love to be able to review that speaker, but I'm talking, there's probably no way that's ever going to happen. I don't think Genelec would ever send me that speaker. And then I'd have to figure out a way to measure it. But by the way, I actually did just get installed the Klippel Z axis extension, which allows me now to measure tower speakers uh, easily, more easily. I don't know. But I just measured my first tower speaker yesterday. It is the KEF LS60. So keep an eye out for that. That speaker is actually really, really cool. And I really, really like it. I hope to have the review out within the next 2 weeks or so. Jordan Simmons, what's up, man? LJS Tenor, any thoughts on why JBL's products vary so wildly? Things like completely different design philosophies between the stage and studio line of passive speakers. I've been told some stuff by people who used to work for JBL. It's not really my place to talk about those kind of things, but you're not wrong in seeing that there are instances where it seems like there's a departure from design philosophies from time to time. Aaron, do you know what your IQ is? From Sean. I have no idea, man, and it's probably not that high. Karam, thanks for the super chat, man. I appreciate that. What are your daily driver speakers and subwoofer? Okay, so somebody just asked me this in one of my videos recently, and I don't currently have daily driver speakers. Well, I mean, I do for my car, but my daily drive. So if you're, yeah, daily driver, you're probably talking about my car. I'll tell you my car. It's Morel speakers all around. Is it the Supremo SW9? I think Billy probably knows better than I do, just because Billy keeps up with the names better than I do. I can't remember the model numbers. I think it's the MM3 mid range, and then the Piccolo tweeter, and then for the subwoofer, it's an 18-inch hybrid audio infinite baffle install. If you're talking about for home, though, right now I don't have anything because I used to have a home theater. Then I went through a divorce. I moved. I'm in a rental house. When I sold my other house, I sold it with all the gear in it. The guy asked how much I would take for it to keep the home theater intact. He had two younger kids, and I was more than happy to let somebody get some enjoyment out of it because, frankly, I just didn't use it that much anyway. If you saw my other video about home theater getting out of hand, you saw me mention that. So right now, I don't have any speakers of my own that I'm using because I don't even know what I would want to use. And I'm always getting something in new to switch out. So for now, I'm not running anything on my own. I don't know what I'll do when I do move into a new home. I still don't know if I want to go with in walls or I have no idea what I want to do. But thank you for the super chat. Would you measure rhythmic servo sub, especially the distortion? I actually measured there. I think it was the FG12 or F12. I measured it when I was it was like 2012 that I was what's the word? Not working for, but kind of collaborating with Home Theater Shack. Which I don't even know if Home Theater Shack is around anymore. I think the guy who owned it sold it, and they paid me like $100 or something to review that subwoofer for them. So I did some basic measurements. I mean, I was pretty proud of the review. This is before I even knew about CEA 2010 measurements. And so, yeah, back then I reviewed it. I have harmonic distortion results for it. Let me go see if I've got it on my website. It may be one of the only ones I actually have on there. Oh, yeah, cool. I do. Let me show you real fast. Okay, it was April 27th, 2013 is when I reviewed it. And let's see here. Some initial impressions. I talked about how heavy it was, a bunch of pictures, take it apart. I measured the raw woofer. And let's see here. I measured the excursion. So it had at least 17.8 millimeters of excursion one way at the 20% distortion threshold per the IEC standard, which is pretty dang good. And then let's see here. Do I have raw driver in the near field? Subwoofer testing, low frequency. Okay, these are near field measurements of the subwoofer. Since it was sealed, I didn't really have to worry about doing any kind of pasting or stitching of port and driver measurements, but this is near field measurements at all these different specs. Let's see, do I have distortion in here? Parametric EQ, rumble filter, accelerometer. Oh, look, I spelled accelerometer. 10 years later, and I realized that I spelled the word accelerometer wrong in this review. Nobody else ever caught it. Some CSD because the cabinet was resonating. In-room use. Doesn't look like I actually have any. Oh, yeah. I don't actually have any harmonic distortion measurements on there. So, yeah, I thought I did. I knew I measured one of their subwoofers, but not in the same way that I would measure it today. And I would be willing to measure it, but any subwoofer measurements that I would do are going to be next spring because now it's getting too cold to measure subwoofers again. I'd love to see one of the CSS audio kits tested, by the way. I actually tested their tower speaker, and it came from, I think it came from, is it Thomas and Stereo? I think that's where it came from. And between shipping, something happened and something in the crossover broke. Because when I listened to them, I was like, something's not right. There was a weird imbalance between the left and right as far as staging goes. And then I measured it. And luckily, I measured the one that was broken. Because if I'd have measured the one that wasn't broken, I wouldn't have known, and I would have just thought like, well, that's why does it sound so weird? But I measured the one that was broken, and that actually has caused me now to whenever I get a review product in, I always measure the impedance of both. I just do a quick impedance sweep just to make sure that they're in the same ballpark. They don't have to be dead on the exact same, but if something's broken, it'll show up in an impedance sweep. So I contacted CSS. I let them know I was like, something's up here. And I think if I recall, something was that you could actually hear it rattling in the cabinet when I, kind of shook on it a little bit. And I sent it back, and I just never got another pair from them. So yeah, that'd be something else I would be willing to try again. AV what's up, man? How's the car stereo coming? It's actually coming along really well. I still need to do some tuning on it. The sub to mid bass integration phase is good, but it's too resonant. There's something. It sounds like it's between like 120 and 160. It's very bloomy, and it's way too much. I did some centering between left and right by ear with test tones and then pink noise. So I got the centering lined up between the left and right, and the mid bass sound is in the center of the sound stage. But I need to go back now and do some tonal adjustments to kind of correct for the cabin, things like that. But yeah, man, I appreciate you asking. Is there a way to measure a speaker sensitivity in a basic way, whether you might want an REW in room or do you have to go outside and do like James Larson? So speaker sensitivity, you're going to have to make sure that you're measuring it to a standard 2.83 volts at 1 meter, or at least the equivalent thereof. If you are interested in measuring, let me find this because this is by far the best newbie, if you will, guide to measuring a loudspeaker. So give me a second here. One audio science review. It was put together by a gentleman named Napier Lopez, who used to do measurements for, gosh, the name. I literally had the name until I thought about it. It escapes me right now, but let me copy this link. I'm going to drop it into the chat, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay. This is what it looks like. This is the thread you're going to look for. How to make a quasi anechoic speaker measurements, vanilla Raman with REW and VitrixCAD. VitrixCAD, I just call it VCAD for short. And there's all sorts of steps in here. He talks about merging near field to far field, accounting for near field measurements on ports, the bass driver, diffraction effects, things of that nature. So to answer your question, yes, you can do it in a home. It takes, I don't know if I'd say it takes more work because measuring outside also takes work. Either way you go, if you want a full set of measurements, it's going to take work. If you want a quick sanity check for frequency response on axis, though, you should be able to use this and get there pretty quickly. Like I said, it's already dropped in the chat. Just follow that link. Let's see here. Make sure I'm not missing any super chats. Oh, I already got this one. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that one. I would absolutely love the 8381A on the Clipple. I'd be excited to see measurements of one. Yeah, I would too, man. But those things are heavy, and I do not look forward to that. Brian, it's good that you share the FRD and ZMA data, Aaron. Accurate measurements are key to good DIY speaker design. Otherwise, it's just ego. Yeah, I hope that people were able to use that and maybe do something with it. Matter of fact, I actually think I need to reach out to Parts Express because they emailed me months ago seeing if I would be interested in testing some of their other kit designs, and I need to ask them about that. I'll be honest though, the kit stuff to me right now is just not something I want to deal with because I don't have time. I've always got speakers in for review, and I don't have the space either to set up like a table and put together speakers. My clamps are all in storage. All my hardware, my tools are in storage right now. I just don't have the time or the space. Okay. What do you think about the ELAC Unify UB5 bookshelf speakers? Is it better than the Monoprice B6 bookshelf? Did I review that one? Let me go look. Yeah. Is that the one that's kind of an older design now? Yeah, so I don't know. there any measurements on it anywhere? Absolute sound, no audio file. I love that guy's site. Let's see here. Looks like a mirror for Audio Science Review measured it. Huh. Okay, let me pull up this just for a second. If this is the one you're talking about, it's got a headless panther. I think that's a bad thing to a mirror. Looking at the data, I don't see why it would be so bad. I mean, it's not perfect, but you got a diffraction dip there. I mean, this isn't bad. I'd rather have a dip than a peak. Now, compared to the B6, if I'm just looking at, I'll just go off of this alone real fast, just to kind of make a quick comparison. I seem to remember the B6 being a little bit more squirrely in its frequency response, and I did test that one, so I can tell you. But it look how I think that speaker looks really nice. Gloss top on the top of it, gloss top on the top. Okay. Captain Redundancy of the redundancy department. Let's see. That's the huh. Compared to that, yeah, it looks like there's a couple directivity mismatches for the Encore B6. Um, both of them aren't quite completely linear. I don't know. I'd say maybe that might be kind of a toss up. The Unify though is supposed to be a three-way, so I would expect that it would probably have better vertical response. Let's see. Well, I this graphic is hard for me to read because of the scale is so. Look, there's 5 color bars, but so each color bar represents a dB step. It's not very easy to follow that color line, so it's hard for me to say compared to the way that I provide it now, like this. I don't know, man. I'll be honest with you. I really just don't know. I would. They're cheap enough. I think if you can just order both of them, try them out, send the one you don't like back. But the data on them kind of indicates that. Let's see, plus or minus stereo width, or I should say radiations. Both of them are about plus or minus 60 or so, but the ELAC seems to be a little bit more smoother in terms of directivity. So maybe that's why I would give the ELAC the edge there. Heck yeah, those kiddos will definitely enjoy that home thing. I should message them and ask them if they're using it that much. Aaron, get yourself something modest for yourself. Do like a 2.1 system that's super manageable. I'm actually thinking about that. So I may get the KEF LS60s and get a subwoofer and just call it a day. I might do that. I don't know. But I'm cheap too, y'all. I mean, I it hurts me to think to have to spend $5,000 on speakers. You know, I'm just thinking, oof, there's a lot of other stuff that I could buy. But if it works, it works. What do I think about the Model Y stock stereo? So the Tesla Model Y stock stereo, I think sounds really good. The tonality is really good. The output is somewhat limited. I wanted more bass. They're definitely running a hard limiter on that thing, and below about 50 hertz, it just tanks off. But the tonality was really surprising, and how well everything blended. It was really impressive. I will give them that. Imaging wise, I mean, it's set up for everybody in the car to have overall good sound. So there's really no imaging to speak of. What's the one thing that's really hard to get right with a home theater setup? I'd be curious to hear from everybody else here. My opinion would be subwoofer to mains integration. Let's see here. Can I get your thoughts on the Neumann KH80? I have zero experience with any Neumann stuff, so anything that I would tell you would have to be based solely on measurements. I mean, I can Google to see if I can find any. You, I'm sure that, yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure that Amir's reviewed them because I think he reviews a lot of the Neumann stuff. So let me pull that up. It looks like a smaller speaker. I like that they have different settings on the back, so that's cool. I really like when manufacturers do this for different positions and things like that because that stuff matters. Uh, looks like it looks really dang good, actually. What are my thoughts on it? It looks really dang good. I'd be curious. I'm sure the output is limited. Looks like F3. That's 105. What is that? So 20, 30, 40, 50. F3 is probably around 55 hertz or so. And then it's pretty steep fall off after that. But yeah, this speaker looks good. If you're asking me because you're considering buying it, I would say give it a shot. Now, this is interesting. This means that in the far field, I would think that that might be. Uh, I don't want to use the word bright, but I would probably feel like that might be a bright speaker. Let's see in room. What is the? I can't really tell from that. Yeah, I don't know. In the near field, though, it's not an issue. But just looking at the estimated interim response makes me think if you're in the far field, that target curve, if you will, that's drawn here, I would probably draw it more sloped through here. Then I would say that the top end is probably a little bit bright, but that's solely based on measurements. And I really don't like talking about a speaker that I haven't heard before to kind of give some idea. But if I'm looking at the measurements, I would say it looks like it's a good speaker. Mr. Tubby, have you ever wanted to measure the V-late? I can pronounce that. Somebody, I'm sure you're screaming at the television right now. Oh, this is how you pronounce it. I don't know. Yeah, I have, but I don't know that I will. Always pushing, suffering from YouTube audio influencers burnout. Sometimes too much info is just too much. I looked and was subscribed to over 50 channels and had to narrow it down to 10. My ADHD gets overloaded. Absolutely. I don't really watch any audio related channels at all. Some of that's because if I want to learn about something, then I'll figure out a way to get my hands on it and I'll listen to it myself and I'll test it out myself and see what I think personally. But the other part is I just do so much of this that when I do have free time, I just rather be watching other things. So if you're curious, a couple of the things that I watch, there's a YouTube channel. Let's see here. I really like. I probably need to go through and purge all my YouTube subscriptions too. Let's see. On these guys. Yes. Yes, square. No, don't feel frustrated when I wait. Okay, I'm trying to show you. This channel, it's called Pixel Game Squad. It's like a retro video game hunters type group of guys. They're good friends. They go to conventions and things like that, which I don't go to video game conventions. I'm not like, I'll be honest, I'm not super into video games at all. I quit playing video games probably after the PS1 came out. But what I really like about these guys' channel is that they're friends, they're goofballs, they're hanging out, they're going to swap meets, they're going to shows, they're going to events, they're talking with other friends, and it reminds me very much of this hobby in the way that the best part about this hobby for me is talking to people and sharing in the experiences with friends and making new friends and just the camaraderie of it all to me is what I really enjoy. That's what I really enjoy about car audio. And I used to host events at my house where I had it one year, I had like 40 people show up in their with their car systems to demo and to let other people listen to theirs and just to talk. And we just sit around all day and talk. And that is still something that I try to do is to get out and go to events. And I actually was going to post something last week, but I didn't, but I'll mention it now. I'm considering trying to find a place near the Huntsville, Alabama area where I can rent out maybe like a conference room or something for a day from a nicer hotel where we just get together, a bunch of audio nerds get together and we just talk. I'm not going to try to go the route of setting up an audio show. That's not something I'm not even interested in it, to be honest with you. I can't imagine the work that is involved in that. I don't want to be trying to sell tickets. I don't want to try to get vendors. I'm just thinking if I could secure a place where a bunch of audio nerds could get together and come and hang out and just talk about speakers and just enjoy being able to talk with people who share the passion for the hobby. Because if you're like me, you probably don't know many people in your personal circle on a day-to-day basis that are audio nerds that are going to sit down and watch somebody like me talk about audio. That's how I know that you're a super audio nerd, because you're watching me talk about audio. I mean, like, let's be real. We're all super audio nerds. So to me, that's what the best part about the hobby is. And if I can do that, I'd hope that you could make it. And I don't expect people to drive from all over, but if you're within a couple hours from the Huntsville, Alabama area, North Alabama, maybe you can come out. I'm going to try. I'm going to wait till the new year. I'm going to reach out to places to just see what it would cost me to rent out like a ballroom or something and just have people come over and hang out. That would be what I would like to do. But yeah, man, I hear you on trying to reduce your subscriptions, because there's a lot of them that I've got too. But that one channel in particular is one that I really enjoy, just because they're just some dudes hanging out and enjoying a passion for video games. I mean, come on, that's cool. Does the imaging capabilities of a single speaker matter much in a non-plus channel surround system, or is it rather about placement? Placement of the images or placement of the speaker? I think imaging always matters. Imaging may matter less to somebody than maybe tonal quality or spaciousness, those kind of things. I mean, you can sacrifice one for the other. Sometimes you can get both of them, but most speakers are going to sacrifice a little bit of something somewhere. But imaging to me always matters. Tonally, there's a lot of really, really good speakers. So it's not hard to find a speaker that has a good tonal balance, and they don't have to be the same. I'm not saying like there's 20 speakers with the same tonal balance. They'd be a little bit different, but they're all enjoyable. And then when you get down to the next level, it's like, how good is the imaging? Are the speakers matched, for one? So imaging to me always matters. I wouldn't say that it doesn't matter so much compared to other aspects, but that's just me. Any experience with CDT two-way or three-way? I had CDT midwoofers back in around 2007, and I had them for like maybe I don't know, it was a short time, probably like a month or two, and then I got rid of them and started running Seos. I think it was the L18 midwoofers. I wanted the W18NX, but those were more expensive than I could afford. I was still in college, so it would have had to been around 2006 or so, actually. Adding to Zomba's question, I want to know what you think of Neumann speakers in general, and maybe even the older Klein Hummel stuff before they were merged with Neumann. Again, I don't have any personal experience with Neumann at all, so I really can't say. What speaker would I recommend for an apartment under 1K? Check out those Ascend Acoustic Sierra 1 V2s that I just reviewed. They're right at $1,000 for a pair. Actually, they're just under that right now. Those are awesome. Check those out. If there's something about them you don't like, then let me know. But check those out. Those are pretty awesome. Gain Stage $4.99 super chat. I appreciate that, man. I really do. Subwoofer integration of my 2.1 sound system has always been a challenge for me. Any higher than 80 hertz makes the problem worse. Any thoughts on this? Yeah, my first thought is there's probably some kind of phase null in either your mains or your subwoofer. So if you have the means, the first thing I would do is measure the frequency response of your mains wide open, turn off all DSP processing, everything, turn it all off and let it run wide open from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz with no processing. And then do the same thing with your subwoofer, run it wide open, however wide it can be. And then look and see if there's any kind of dip from one of those speakers, or the main speakers or the subwoofer while they're playing on their own. My guess is that you're probably going to have a dip maybe around 70, 80, or 90 hertz or something like that. And that's going to be causing some kind of weird phase issue. So you're going to have to work at making sure you get the phase aligned, because if you don't, what I found to happen is that the individual speakers, the mains and or the subwoofer, will draw more attention to themselves because they're not playing as one cohesive unit, basically. The mains are not aligned in phase and or time, and to some degree the amplitude with the subwoofer and vice versa. So when there's an issue like that, usually one of the speakers, if not both, will call attention to themselves. Check there first, see what you get with that first, and then play them together and then see what you get. That should at least give you some inkling as to what's going on. And then if you need to, you can also set up gain overlap, or not gain overlap, I'm sorry, crossover overlap, where maybe you run your mains down to 60 hertz and you run your subwoofer to 80 hertz or something like that. There's nothing wrong with doing what you need to do. You just need to understand the relationship of the speakers with each other and with the room relative to your seated position. So see what you get there when you try that. And thanks again for the super chat. Aaron, is it problematic to measure a speaker at your listening position because the mic is measuring direct and indirect sound, whereas our ears are focused on just the direct sound? So your ears are hearing the direct and the reflected sound together. The intensity is really what makes that separation. So if you're right up on top of a speaker, you're going to hear that direct sound because any reflected sound is so low in the noise, that who cares, right? The further you get away from that speaker, the more sound you get from the reflections. And that's when you start to have noticeable issues if you have a speaker that measures flat on axis, but it has poor off axis response. Those reflections are the problem there. Tuber749, what's up, man? Hello, Aaron. Huge fan and admirer of the amount of work and research you put in your channel. I'll be honest, I don't put in as much research as I should. There's been many times where I thought I need to take like a month off and go back and reread some of these books to refresh my brain, but I appreciate the sentiment for sure. I know that aren't clips. You probably got something else underneath here. Where'd it go? Okay, hopefully I'll find that comment again because this thing is shifting all around on me. So I'm losing some stuff here. Keep looking here. I appreciate it anyway. I feel like there's probably something got cut off there. I'm trying to find it. If I come across it, I'll let you know. Aaron, Amir's first measurement of the KH80 has an error. The version 3 of the measurements looks even flatter. Okay, cool. The PIR looks even better. Okay. If I recall, I remember he had some trouble with some base measurements on some of his earlier tests, which stuff like that happens, man. So I'm glad he was able to catch it and learn from it. Same thing I do. I still run into stuff where I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's a setting that was held over from another speaker. And instead of orienting the microphone one way, like, if I measured a center speaker, well, that's a bad example. Let me think here. If I laid a tower speaker on its side, then I might want to orient, no, hold on. That's right. Let me go back. I'm sorry. I'm confusing myself here. If I measure a center speaker, I might want to know what it's doing one way or the other. And I may tell the clipple like, hey, put the emphasis on this direction. And then if I measure a different kind of speaker, like a bookshelf speaker, I may want to know more what's going on in another direction. But I just forget to change that setting from the previous one because, a lot of times I'll run a measurement and then they call them databases. And then you can copy that database forward because I'm really not changing much. I'm just like, take my word for it. I'm not changing much in the software. But sometimes I do mess with something and I forget about it. And then I look at the measurements and I'm like, that don't look right at all. What is going on here? And then I realize, oh yeah, that's from this setting. So I have to fix it. Anyway, long way of saying we are humans and we do make mistakes. What was up with MJ no panning when I listened? Yeah, dude. A couple other people said the same thing. It's not panning. I'm like, it definitely should be. I would check your settings to make sure that your settings on your phone, on your computer, or whatever aren't set to mono in the accessibility mode, because usually that's that's what'll get you. I've done it a few times myself. When streaming off of my phone, I'll have it set to mono mode because I want to test something out in mono for a little bit, and then I forget to switch it back. And then I'll be listening to tracks, and I'll think, man, this kind of sounds different, but whatever. Maybe my hearing is just doing weird stuff. And then I'll get to a track. There's supposed to be something on the left, and it's not. It's dead center, and I'm like, what the? And oh yeah, it's still in mono. Switch it back. So check that. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Here's the continuation. Solid unbiased information is superb. Thanks. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I didn't see your finished version down here. Let's see here. I got about 2 minutes, and I probably need to head out. Hunts Vegas, see Rocket City. That is exactly correct. I'm gonna kind of roll through these. $4.99 super chat from Roll Corral. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will buy myself 2 Snickers bars now. I'm rich. 2 Snickers bars. You guys know Snickers used to be like $1, and now the king size ones are like $2.99. You know, I turn into a total diva when I don't get something to eat. I'm not kidding. I really do. It's a legitimate thing. Like I turn into a total jerk when I'm hangry. So that's why I like those. That's why I like Snickers. Try to snag an interview with Kevin Vokes. I can't remember how you pronounce it. Yes, I would like to. I should actually see if he might be willing to do that. I did ask years ago, but it probably didn't even get to him. Do we have to wear ballroom attire if I have an event? Absolutely. No, you do. You do. But the rest of us do not. Unless it's ballroom attire that's tearaway, and then you've got like dance clothes underneath it where you like boogie down. Oh, that wasn't that. $5 super chat from Hikaru Swift. What bookshelf speaker would you recommend? $300 to $500 price point. Best sounding without EQ, flat, or leaning towards warm. First of all, thank you for the super chat. $300 to $500 price point. I'm assuming you're talking about pair. Let's see here. I'll pull back up my site real fast. Ooh, those Tommen A306. That would be kind of cool. Triangle, Don Audio, Revel. ELAC debut. The ELAC makes some good stuff. Their B6.2. I'll pull that up real fast. I think it's the B6.2. Yeah, that one. Oh, right now you can get it for $240 per pair. That's a really good price. Now, I did review those, and they're not perfect, but guys, I mean, it's no, 6.2. Go see. Just jog my memory here. Yeah, I remember. That's what I thought. There's a resonance right around. I think it's maybe like 700 hertz or so. But if you've got equalization, you can bring that down. If you set a target of maybe like a Q of, let's see how big that is, why that is. I don't know, maybe a Q of like 6 or something, because it's definitely more narrow than a standard graphic equalization, which is about 4.3 Q. And then drop it down 4 decibels or so. You can wipe that right out. And then the rest of it looks pretty good. Yes, there's a discontinuity error here. It's probably vertical. Let's see what the horizontal itself looks like. Ooh, look at that bump. So this bump right here would sound bright to me. But if the horizontal directivity looks all right, then you could EQ that down. No. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of smooth through there. So I think you could EQ that area down and you'd be all right with equalization. Now you're saying without equalization, and I would still say that's probably a good speaker. You probably going to have to turn it off axis. But let's see what else there is. Reserve 200. Was it the 200 that I didn't really care for? Look at all these bookshelf speakers. I do need to put together a table. Do not buy anything from Yamo or Jamo from their budget line. Just don't, because people get upset when I say they sound bad, but they sound bad. And I'm not saying the measurements are anything and everything, but look at this. There's 5 decibels between the mid-range and the tweeter. 5 decibels. And then look at that peaky bass note right there. Generally speaking, I've not seen a single Jamo speaker that I thought was good. Yamo speaker, other than their subwoofer, the C912, I think is what it was. Let's see here. Oh, if you can find the Klipsch RPM originals on sale, they might be all right. Let me make sure they are before I tell you. Yeah, they got a dip on axis and rising treble. You could turn that off axis and probably help alleviate that. That dip may not be too bad. Actually, I don't know. This kind of is not quite as great as I thought it was going to be. What about the two? The two, I recall that it was better. Yeah, they fixed the crossover. Maybe put it close to a wall, turn it off axis. I think that would get you by with the RP or RP 600M and ooh, even the 600. Ooh, hey, these are on sale. RP 600M twos under 500 bucks for the pair. Those might be worth your while to consider. I want to see what the radiation is though. This stuff just kind of like, oh, it's this one. Sorry, I know I'm jumping around, but this is me just brain farting it all the way through. Yeah, turn them off axis about 30 degrees. You'll smooth out that high frequency some. A little bit of a resonance. I can deal with that. This dip through here can help be alleviated by placing it close to the wall behind it. Can't stick it right on top of the wall because it's got a rear port. Is that right? Yeah, so just kind of keep that in mind. But I want to see it's narrow. That would be my only personal issue. If I was looking at this thing, to me, it'd be a bit narrow. I want something that would be a little bit wider by about 20 degrees or so. But otherwise, that one actually seems like it'd be all right. Get rid of these. And that was the 600M2 currently on sale. The monoprice B6, I think I would say use that with equalization. KEF Q100 or Q150. You can get these for under 500 bucks a pair. They typically go on sale for 300 bucks a pair. That's a good speaker. The only real thing I'm seeing here is this dip through the directivity right here, but otherwise I think it's a good speaker. There are a couple of issues in mid-range area. It's going to be sounding kind of boxy or maybe a bit nasally through here. Top end is a little bit brighter than I would personally prefer, but again, you could probably turn it off axis and help alleviate that some. And let's see, the width is not, again, quite as wide as I would personally prefer, but it's an option. The Arendal, I wish they still made that. Polk XT20. I seem to recall that being a pretty good speaker for its price. It's heavy because the motor on that thing was ridiculous. Yeah, this one's actually all right. So we see these dips right through here. Blow it up. We see this dip right through here, right? And it's to me, it screams baffle step compensation. If you place it near a wall, that reinforcement from the wall behind it, as long as it's high enough in frequency, it will touch that. It will carry that through. That's about 600 hertz. So let's see, is it omni at 700 hertz or reasonably omni? Needs to be plus or minus 90. Yeah, I think that's all right. So you got enough behind it. So if you put it closer to a wall, that'll help shore up that. That's interesting that there's a common theme going on here. Numi BS5, that's another one that I enjoyed. The Polk R100 was a speaker I think that I liked it, but it was a little bit bright. I seem to recall thinking it was a little bit bright. It actually doesn't look too bad through there. So the Polk R100, let's see what those cost now. R100. 641? Really? Does accessories for less have it? Accessories for less? Or is it for less? Hey, they've got it refurbished, but okay. $399. Polk R100. That's another good option to consider. So hopefully that's kind of enough to get you going. If you need any more help, just give me a shout. I appreciate the super chat. $20 super chat from Red 5. I appreciate that. I don't know how to say it, but here it goes. I feel 100% absolute uncertainty purchasing an item you recommend. Your nonchalant honesty approach is very much appreciated. Well, man, I appreciate that. And I read that wrong at first. I thought you said absolute uncertainty. And I was like, oh no. So first of all, thank you. Let me get rid of this screen. That means a lot, actually. It really does, and it's not just like from an inflated ego thing. It's because that makes me feel like, okay, what I'm trying to do here is helpful. But I do want to say that, when I recommend stuff, I usually try to do it from the objective perspective. Like if a friend of mine is asking, should I buy this thing? Then I feel confidence in telling them, yeah, that's a good purchase. And I try to treat you all the same way, my audience the same way, where if it's if you're asking me, should I buy this thing? And I don't like it, I'm just going to tell you. Now, the data may look better than my feelings about it, or vice versa. And people like what they like. I just recently reviewed those Sonos Fibers Lumina 2s, and I had a couple of people say the speakers don't sound bright at all to me. And I'm thinking, how can they not sound bright? Even the data shows plus 5 decibels over the mid range in the tweeter. But regardless, it doesn't sound bright to them. And I don't know if they have a reference for something that isn't bright. Maybe they just like that sound. Maybe there's something about their room or their setup that speaker works for them, and that's fine. So I'm saying that to basically caveat, like, I appreciate the confidence that you put in my recommendations, but feel free to question me when you see something that doesn't look right, because, like I said earlier, I'm just another dude with the fortunate capability to really pursue his passion as a hobby, and I hope that you all are getting something from it, and I do appreciate it. Okay. Oh, hello. Forgot to write on Super Chat. I'm trying to get a center channel. Was planning on either getting a Revel M106 or a Rendall 1723. Personally, I'd get the Revel, just because they're a little bit wider. think. I think. Let me double check that before I walk away from this thing and tell you the wrong thing here. Did I test the 106? I did not test the 106. Okay. I'll say this. Out of those two, both fantastic brands, make great stuff. I prefer speakers that have about plus or minus 60 degrees horizontal radiation. And I've learned that just by looking at my measurements. And I'm getting like a broken record at this point, where I'm sure some people are like, oh my God, here we go again. Look, I get it. Sometimes I feel that way about myself, but I'm just trying to be honest or upfront about these are things that I like, and it's subjective preference. So some others may like a speaker that has a little bit more narrow, and that would probably be the deciding factor between those two speakers. I'm willing to bet both of them have really good directivity, and I'm willing to bet that you can equalize them to work as great as you want to. The 1723S, if you're talking about the center, the only thing that I'm concerned with, well, they're both bookshelves, right? So you're going to be standing them up. Yeah, I personally, without having a chance to dive deep into the data between the two, I'm going to say I would probably go with the Revel, because I think it's probably wider radiation, but feel free to check that for me. Like I said a minute ago, feel free to double check me there. I'm going to make sure I didn't miss any super chats. I really do need a split. I've got to get some stuff packed and my lunch ready for work tomorrow, because I do not do this for a living, y'all. Some people still think that I do not do this for a living. I couldn't afford to do this for a living. Joe Randall, $5 super chat. I appreciate that, Joe. I really do, man. I just, maybe if I forget to pack my lunch tonight, then I can get me something to eat on that. I do appreciate that, man. I hope you all have a good night. I am going to split now, and it was good hanging out with you all. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the follow-ups in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. But really, I started the Tuesday talk things because I just don't have a lot of time to answer the comments and questions as much as I used to. So I'm just getting more busy and things like that happen. So, but yeah, I appreciate you all watching. I sincerely do. It'll be after Christmas before we do this thing again. So I want to go ahead and wish you all a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And that's just not just a PC thing. I genuinely mean that. I hope you have a great rest of the December. I will see you soon, because I've got some other speaker reviews. The MoFi Source Point 8 is coming. The KEF LS60 is coming as well. And then I may take a little bit of a break for a week or two for measuring speakers, just to give my brain a rest. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm kind of a workaholic, so we'll see. Y'all have a good one. Take care. Talk to you later. Peace.